welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today we're going to be talking about the absolutely fantastic show that is the Bedford Steam and Country Fair. So I went along last year, and I went along in one of my dad's cars. He'd got two of his singers booked in on the Singer Owners Club stand, and we had an absolutely fantastic time. I'm sure I did a podcast about it whilst we were there, and it was only one day that I was able to go along to last year, and had a fantastic time. And I thought, I know a group of people that will absolutely love this. It's the Women Drivers Social Club. We need to get ourselves booked in and go into this so that we can have a weekend out enjoying steam and heritage vehicles and an old fairground and everything else that it has to offer. So I put a post out on the Women Drivers Social Club earlier this year, and if you are somebody who's interested in coming along to the Women Drivers Social Club events, they are only advertised in our private Facebook group. We do put posts out on the Instagram about there being an event, but you can only get yourself booked in by going onto the Facebook page, just so that we can keep an eye on who it is that's booking in to our events and try and keep them a nice safe space for everyone. So anyway, put a post out, got everyone to send in their application forms to me, and sent those all off. And then it was a case of excitedly waiting for the weekend to come. And it is in September. It was last weekend just gone, and so the weather can be a little bit dubious, but it is a really fun way to spend the end of the season. Last year we had absolutely incredible weather the whole time. This year it was a little bit damp in places, particularly towards the end, but considering the forecast that everyone had braced themselves for, we did pretty well, all things considered, and had an amazing weekend that was well worth a little bit of rain. So myself and Sarah in her Citroen DS met up at the Halfords on Boongate, and headed down on the Thursday around lunchtime. The site is actually open to exhibitors who are camping from the Wednesday, so by the time that we got down there, the site was really starting to be pretty well established, and we were looking to find ourselves a decent little camping spot. And took a bit of going, but we actually ended up camping right next to Andy, whose bullnose Billy I've driven on the channel, who I obviously see at Morris Minor events, at Morris Register events, and he's very local to this show, so saw him at this as well, which was a nice little bonus. And we ended up camping near him and his mates when we picked our perfect camping spot from what remained. We got ourselves pitched up and spread our cars out a little bit to make sure that we had some spaces reserved for those coming a little bit later on. And once we were pitched with our two tents, we were joined by Claire and Mush, who had come in Mavis the Snail, and by Claire Atkinson, who had come in her van with her tent box, and a little bit later on Jamie came along, having finished work, and Ashley arrived as well. So that was our first night of kind of campers arriving on site, and we got ourselves nicely set up and then headed out around the site in Peggy to pick up some fish and chips from one of the stands that had already started selling food. Now, whilst the weather can be a bit damper in September, rain often means cloud cover, and we've come to learn very quickly in the Women Drivers Social Club the cloud cover in the evenings is fantastic because it means it's not absolutely freezing as we try to go to sleep. So we had a reasonably good night's sleep, woke up the following morning and were joined by Katie, Amanda, Emily and Sheg, Alex, my sister, for the weekend. And some of them were camping, some of them were living local enough that they could pop home overnight, some had hotels that they were able to go and cozy up in the evenings. But altogether we ended up with a pretty decent display. Once we found where we were supposed to be displayed, which did take some work, and we got ourselves all nicely set up. Ashley had brought along a really good little gazebo that meant that we were able to have a little bit of shelter on the stand, and we were perfectly positioned next to the stationary engines so we could watch them do what they do all day, which is exactly what their operators were doing, setting them off first thing as we parked the cars up, and then sitting there and watching them do that all day. Now, the thing that a lot of people don't realise is just how vast this site is. It is a big event, and there truly is enough to do for 3 days, and there's lots to see, lots to go around and do. And of course, if you're there exhibiting, you have the bonus of being able to go around the site in your vehicle, because this event is so fantastic in that it actively encourages people who are there in heritage vehicles to move around the site in those vehicles, show people them moving, show people them the sounds and smells and all of that that's often associated with them, to help get more people interested, because there is obviously a lot of commitment involved in some of the vehicles on display. The steam engines and the traction engines and all of that sort of stuff requires an awful lot of work and therefore an awful lot of interest. And also, as I've said before on the podcast, we are all so reliant on being able to use our vehicles on the public and the public's approval and the public's support for us being able to use them. And so having an event where you are actively encouraged to move your vehicles around, show people just what your vehicles are capable of, and just be a bit more interesting is fantastic. And as a club we had a fantastic time doing that, because it meant that we were able to try each other's vehicles out a little bit, see how a pre-war vehicle Model A operates compared to whatever car we come in, get to ride in each other's cars and experience the different sounds and smells as well. And it was just so much of a highlight of the event, is that ability to use our vehicles and kind of really engage with what's going on. And you end up in these absolutely fantastic little traffic jams where you're surrounded by the most unusual collection of vehicles, and having a fantastic time. So there's two big fields. We were in the field that I guess is closest to the public entrance but furthest from the exhibitor entrance to the site, and in our field there was obviously the classic vehicles, there was the commercial vehicles, the military vehicles, stationary engines, the tractors, and also some really interesting and unusual collections. I don't know where else you would go if you wanted to see a collection of measuring implements and calculators and stuff like that, but there was one of those, a whole display of somebody's personal collection of those, personal collections of like rally choppers, all sorts of really weird and wonderful collections that it's just so great to see being displayed and being appreciated. And it is really funny to see the signs on them that say nothing's for sale, just a personal collection, and them having the opportunity to kind of share that with everyone. And the sliding rule and mechanical calculator display was definitely a highlight for the Women Drivers Social Club. People kept coming back to the club stand and saying, "Oh my gosh, have you seen the stationary ruler? Have you seen the sliding rule and mechanical calculator display?" And they were like, "No, where is it?" So we were all sending everyone over to go and have a look at this really unusual collection of things that you'd never expect to see in a field in Bedfordshire. Then in the other field is where the primary collection of traction engines and steam engines are all displaying. They've got the big vintage fairground on there, a arena which we were able to go into and display ourselves and have a little circuit round with a load of the classic motorbikes. And then there's also the kind of stalls where there's lots of little bits and bobs to buy, quite auto jumbly, but also there's some fantastic food stands and stuff like that as well. Some kind of group displays of things. So we had areas where there was a personal collection of like buses and trailers and vintage vehicles that you could go around. And yeah, it was just a really interesting display of things that you were able to then just meander around and explore. And a lot of the stalls were also kind of gradually putting more stuff out over the weekend. So you'd go round, find something, and then someone would go round and find something else later, and have no idea that was even there. And the chances were it wasn't. It was just put out after you'd bought your thing, and someone else came along and they put something else out. There was a stand that did very well from selling waterproof coats, as we had a couple of surprise showers on the Friday or Saturday, I can't remember. Saturday I think was primarily pretty decent weather, and then Sunday we had a pretty good morning, which meant that we were able to all leave our tents up to dry out a little bit, because being the last event of the season, it is a bit of a risk camping, because you might end up having to put your tent back up when you get home to dry it out. But we managed to, we think, dry our tents out enough that wasn't too much of an issue, and then pop them down before the rain really hit at about 3 o'clock. Now, one of my favourite things about the show was definitely the fairground organs. They were absolutely everywhere. It wasn't quite as good as you walked from hearing one to being able to hear the next one, but it was pretty close to that. And not only were they playing kind of your more traditional fairground organ sorts of music, but I clocked one that was playing like Mysterious Girl. Katie clocked one that was playing Bad Romance by Lady Gaga. It was just I really, really love the way that they sound and the way that they play music, and I think they're awesome. And so to see as many as we did there over the weekend, and just be able to enjoy as much interesting and historic heritage pieces of machinery, from everything from tractors to traction engines to mechanical fairground organs, was just brilliant, and we really enjoyed it. Particularly standout vehicles for me would be Texas Flying Ant Nest. This was a Reliant ant that had been converted to a sort of caravan, and it was just so adorable. A three-wheeled based little van, well, quite a big van actually when you think about it, and had a little kind of corrugated camping setup on the back of it, and it was beautiful to see all set up. But then we also saw it kind of driving around the field, and it just looked hilarious, really. There's also quite a lot of steam cars at this event, and to see them kind of bombing about the place was fantastic, really enjoyable. And we had a great opportunity where a guy had kind of pulled over to cool his car off and refuel and stuff, and it was fascinating to hear him kind of talking about his experiences of owning a steam vehicle and how they differ so much to the steam engines, and this amazing road trip that he'd been on with 11 other Stanley steamers that had gone around the Cotswolds and was based entirely on every kind of 20 miles or so being able to stop by a stream and fill up the tank and then carry on to the next part. And they had kind of a really brilliant adventure round and enjoyed the vehicles. And imagine being Cotswolds, a place that's often full of tourists from other countries who will have likely not seen a Stanley steamer, and then seeing 11 of them all steaming past you must have been just insane, truly incredible, and just a really cool thing to hear about. And they really do go, they have quite a speed on when they want to, the little steam cars, and it's really fascinating to have been able to see where the boiler is, see how it all goes together, and hear about this guy's experiences of owning it. And I think a personal little star of the Women Drivers Social Club stand has to be Archie, the Model A that's owned by Claire and Mush. They've had it for I think like 2 years probably about now, and they bought it to be able to do things like race the waves and other kind of historic racing things. And he's got the most cool chunky rear tyres on, and had a fantastic time going around the site, because driving a pre-war car out on modern roads like I am driving Peggy today is not always for the faint-hearted. It can be quite frustrating because you're really enjoying what you're doing. You're going at a speed that's safe for the car and safe for everything that's around you. But a lot of modern cars aren't gonna be as totally respectful of that. And he's had a little bit of a running issue, which Claire thinks is related to his points. And so sometimes when he goes over a bump, she loses power and has to get out and sort those out, which doesn't lend itself very well to being out enjoying a nice country drive. So Claire was having the absolute time of her life, being able to hop in Archie and drive him round, enjoy him, let other people get involved and enjoy him as well. And he really looked so at home. He managed to make friends with a Model T named Bertie that came along and said hello on our stand. And yeah, it was just a real eye-catching vehicle on the stand. I mean, we had some beautiful vehicles on the stand. We had 2 white DS's. What fun that was in terms of playing Spot the Difference. We had Peggy, we had Lilac Linda, the Morris Minor, we had Katie's VW Scirocco, we had my sister's Hillman Californian, we had Emily and Sheg's beautiful Triumph GT6. We had Jaffa on as a little bit of an interloper, and we were supposed to have Alex's Riley Kestrel, but Reggie's been a little bit naughty with his head gasket of late. But all in all, by the time the torrential downpour happened on Sunday, and we had to kind of stick it out a little bit so that we'd made sure that we'd stayed for our allocated time, and then took down our gazebo and put it into the back of Ash's car. We'd had an amazing time. We'd all had such brilliant experience of the show, and a lot of them were saying that it was their favourite show that they'd been to this year, and just a really unique experience. A steam show is so different to just a car show. It is a very unique experience, and I think if you haven't got a steam show in your calendar already for what you regularly go to, finding one, be that the Bedfordshire Steam Show or one that's a bit more local to you, is something I can't recommend enough, because it is just really fun, really interesting. There's always something going on, be that in the arena, be that people going around the site, be that people doing demonstrations. It's just really a fascinating thing, and I mean, goodness knows what their public liability insurance and stuff must be like, so we really should be supporting them, because it is so important to have events like that that give people with vehicles like steam engines the opportunity to really showcase them and get support. And there's clearly a lot of fantastic stuff going on in that community, because they've got the Steam Apprentice Club, which had a fantastic display on, was actively getting young people involved as young as 5 with these vehicles, and it is just brilliant to see, and really heartening to know that there is the next generation coming up to hopefully keep these sorts of events going. But that has been a Bedfordshire Steam Show, and with the Women Drivers Social Club, and I hope you really enjoyed it, and perhaps you'll consider coming along next year, perhaps as a viewing member of the public for a day, or perhaps for a bit longer than that. There is public camping on site if you are into that sort of thing, if you've not got an exhibit and you would like to be there for the whole weekend. Being there for the whole weekend does mean that you get to experience the brilliant fairground when it's all lit up at night, so there's definitely a bonus to it that way. But in the meantime, thank you ever so much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.